Hey everybody, welcome back. If you're new here, hi, I'm Mercury. So today, I think I'm a little bit on a crafting kick these days. I don't know if it's the proximity to Halloween and it's like inspired me to do some Halloween themed crafting. And like I love crafting, but like I'm really in the mindset to do it right now. I just made that vest. I made a gift for my sister. And now I found a new project I want to work on. So I went online and I was like, I have a lot of yarn. Honestly, my friends, my temperature blanket this year, I'm not finishing it. I'm not thrilled with the way it's looking. Like I had an image in my mind of how it should look and it's not matching that. So because I'm not gonna finish it, what I'm doing is a lot of the yarn that I got with the intent of using it for the temperature blanket, I'd like to make other projects with. So I have a ton of black yarn now because I was using that for the edging of the granny squares and to connect them all. So I stocked up on a bunch of black yarn. So I went online looking for patterns and ideas for things that I could make. And I found an awesome sweater. It's so cool. It's a vintage pattern. So the seller is on Etsy and I will put a link to the description in my video, but the seller is Pearl Shore Cat, but the pattern itself is a vintage pattern. And this seller goes around and like finds all these vintage patterns and that's how, you know, she kind of curates them, right? So this is a vintage Halloween pattern. Or spooky season or piratey. It might be piratey. But let me put a picture up right now. And this is what the finished sweater, the goal for the sweater will look like this. How cute is this? And like this is a pattern from the 1950s. I love it. I love it. And like who'd have thunk that my style was kind of cool back then. But I'm sure, you know, like most things for the masses, it was like a Halloween special, but I happen to think Halloween things are good year-round. I have no problem with the year-round Halloweenness. So I'm gonna work on this pattern and we'll see how it goes. I am not going to be giving step-by-step instructions on this video, but I will link to the pattern and where you can get it yourself. But I might do a little bit of a tutorial of like how to do certain types of stitches. Like this sweater is gonna do color changes. I haven't done color changes in a long time. I've done them before, but it's been, that's not totally true. So when I did that pillow for my sister last year, it involved color changes. It feels like it's been longer than that. It does, but I don't feel like I do color changes super often. So I always feel like it's a challenge when I pick a pattern that has color changes in it. So let's get going. So first things first, I have this gauge checker because I can never remember what size this is and they are not marked. So I literally can just kind of put through the hole. See that one, it won't go in, it's too small. So it is a 4.5 or a 7. Depending on how the measurement is. So the thing is, the pattern is written for a size 11 needle, but it also gives you the gauge. And the gauge tells you how many cast-ons and how many rows should equal 1 inch. Well, I tried it with the recommended size 11 needle. Way too big, way too big. So I sized down, I tried a few times with a few different needles, and what I found is this 4.5 needle matches the gauge. So right off the bat, this is either gonna go really, really well or really not so well. And I'm not gonna know until I get closer to the end, because in order to figure out the sizing, like I don't wanna use a needle size that's too big and then end up with this huge oversized thing that doesn't fit properly, but I don't wanna end up with something too small and not be able to get into it. This is tricky. This is tricky. So I'm trusting the gauging and not the printed and not the suggested size of the needle. And the reason I'm trusting the gauging over the printed needle size is because everyone's tension is different and the yarn types might be a little different. And it's easier to change your needle gauge and check and knit with your normal amount of tension that you usually knit with, as opposed to trying to match the recommended needle size and changing your tension, because that's effectively changing your knitting style. That's going to lead to bigger problems, because you don't usually complete a project in one sitting, and then you pick up and it's like, what was my tension? And then you end up with like bigger stitches, smaller stitches, and uneven stitches. Better to use the gauging and use your natural tension. At least that's the thought process that I have going into this project, and I'm hoping it works out. We're not going to know till the end, so put out all the positive vibes that this goes according to plan. So this was my little test gauge. It said 6.5 stitches on, so I put 7 stitches on here, and 8 rows would be 1 inch. And that's what I got on these 4.5 needles. The other thing you might notice is I'm using these circular needles, and they're called circular needles because you can literally knit in a circle on them. So it doesn't really make a difference if you're using straight needles or circular needles for a project that is calling for straight needles. Most of my needles are circular needles, and the reason for this, they fit in my hand very well. So like they fit the curve of my hand. But also they don't hang off so much. So if I'm like on the go, if I want to bring them when I'm traveling, they're compact in my bag, but also like I'm not going to be having a long part of my needle like flipping around, if I'm sitting next to somebody. So I happen to like circular needles a lot. I find that they're really great for somebody who likes to travel with knitting, because every time I fly, I always have some kind of knitting in my bag. So step 1. I got to do a cast on. So let me find the end of this. I have to undo that little test. So we just pull on it and it all comes out. So to do a cast on, I start with a slip knot. So you make a loop, right? You make a loop, and then you take the tail and you push the tail through the loop like that. And you just pull down, boop, and we have a slip knot. It's called a slip knot, so I pull on this, it'll slip out. And then I'm going to take my needle and put the loop right on there. And then we just sort of tighten that up a little bit, and we're good to go. Gotta just untangle that. So let's see. Let's see how many cast-ons I need to do. That's great. Like, you download patterns right onto your phone. This is super convenient. So, okay, there's a lot of cast-ons on this. So we're gonna get going. So the way I do cast-ons is I kind of take the yarn, I hold the yarn in my fingers here, and I wrap it around my finger like this. And then I put the knitting needle under that yarn, and I take my finger out. And then I scoop it with my finger, and I put the knitting needle under, and there we go. And I just keep doing that, right? Doot. Doot. Just like that, until I have the required amount of cast-ons on this knitting needle. I'm going to keep going. The next type of stitch that I'm going to do is a stockinette stitch. And basically, stockinette is the foundational stitch of knitting. It is knit down the row one way, purl down the row the other way. So it's like you knit across, you turn it around, so it would be like knit, knit, knit. Then I'm all tangled. So it would be like knit, knit, knit. And then when I get to the end, I would turn it, switch hands, and then purl, purl, purl. And that's a stockinette. So it's knitting down the row, turning it, and then purling down the row. And that's how you get that classic look of like all V's on one side and little dashes on the other side. So I'm going to do the stockinette, and at the end of the video I will put a link to my tutorial of how to do a stockinette stitch, and I will come back and I will show you what I mean by all the V's versus all the dashes. So I'll show you what a stockinette looks like. So I did my stockinette stitch, and this is how it looks. So you can see this side, it has all V's going downwards. And then if we were to look at the other side, you see it looks like all dashes going across. So this is basically one side knit, the other side purl, and that is how the pattern gets created like this. And this is pretty foundational to knitting. This is just your basic, you knit down the row one way, you purl down the row back. So now that I got that foundational bit done, the next step in the pattern involves color changes. So it's been a while, so I'm just gonna do this off camera. I'm gonna work on it a little bit, and I will show you how far I get and how I end up doing the color change. There's a few different methods, and I need to fiddle around and see which method I need to use for this. When you do color changes that start and end at the beginning of a row, you could just literally tie the strings together and then untie it and weave the ends in. But when you do that in the middle, you can end up with a gap, like a hole, and you have to actually twist the yarn around the other yarn to prevent a hole from forming. So I need to play around a little bit as I'm doing it, and I'll show you how far I get today. Oh, my friends, I was hoping to come back and show you lots of progress and like the beginnings of little skulls on a sweater, and I'm coming back empty-handed. Chaos ensued. Yes, chaos. Chaos happened. So I was going along and I was doing the color change, and I did the first row of the color change and it seemed to be going okay, but my count was off, and I was thinking that like I added extra stitches or I dropped stitches. Like I felt like something was off because my count was way off. So I tried to decrease to try to like fix my stitch count. And then on the next row, I was way under. So I think I just missed a section of color change. Like it went from like, do like 5 of this, 6 of that, 5 of this, and then a whole bunch of another. And somewhere in there, I think I missed a section, like I misread it. And so my stitch count was off. And then when I went to do my next row, I'm like way short on stitches. Like I don't have enough stitches on the knitting needle to go through. So I'm like, oh no. So I was like, okay, I'll undo the row all the way back to where I did those decreases and get those out of there. So I'm like going and I'm going and I'm trying to like carefully do the unraveling. So I'm like trying to like pull out a stitch one at a time, but because of the color changes, the yarn is all wrapped around each other, it was putting a lot of weight on the piece. So as I pulled the stitch out, it not only pulled the one stitch out that I was trying to do, it pulled like 3 consecutive stitches from previous rows. Like, so like if you have like a row here, row here, row here, row here, and I'm just trying to like take out this row going across, it took out the column. It took out the column because of the weight on the piece. And I took a crochet hook and I was trying to like fix it, but it kept happening. I frogged it. If you're not familiar with the term frogging, it's sort of what knitters and crocheters refer to as they just pulled the yarn apart and they went back to the beginning. So I'm at less than nothing right now. I have a tangled mess. I have my color change yarn all twisted. I have to go on and fix that tangled mess. So no progress today. Actually, negative progress. I made more work for myself. I have to go and untangle all this yarn that I just made a big tangled mess out of. It happens. It's not ideal. It's not what I wanted. It's not what I expected for today. But I'm not perfect. You know, and it's a learning experience, right? Like I said before, it's been a while since I've done color changes and I haven't done them too often. It's actually like, I find them kind of challenging and something that I don't take on regularly because they're so challenging. Like you really have to pay attention to every single little stitch. Like there's other stitches and other projects I worked on where it's like the same pattern repeating going down the line with the same color yarn. And you just go do, and you know, it just sort of happens, and I can sort of do it without looking. I could do it by touch at this point. But with color changes, I have to look, I have to pay attention, I have to count all the stitches. it it was a lot, and it was too much for me on this day. I bit off a little more than I could chew, but I'm not giving up on it. I will come back to this project. I might need to give myself a little bit of a break because it's very frustrating when these things happen and you need to walk away from it for a minute and then come back to it. And sometimes that minute is a day, sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter, sometimes it's actually a minute. But I need to walk away from it for a moment and regroup, and then I will be back. And next time when I will be back, I will be starting at least with the solid base where I started with the stockinette. The solid base where I started with the stockinette stitch. I can believe this happened. I was gonna say I can't believe this happened, but I can believe this happened because things happen. Things happen. So yeah, I'm now worn out. I'm disappointed. So I'm gonna call it there. I'm gonna go eat some dinner and try to regroup and untangle a big mess of yarn that's sitting out. So yeah, that's how I'm gonna spend the next hours, untangling yarn. I don't think it's very entertaining to watch, but that's what I'll be up to. But regardless, it's okay. We'll take a break, we'll come back at it, we'll start again, and we'll do better next time. So with that, I am done for the day. I'll see you all real soon. And until then, stay inspired by everyone. Take care.